I would say that consciously, I did not have that great of an influence of Gandhiji on my life until very recently. I did spend part of my childhood outside of India, came back when I was 12, and did finish my high school and college before I returned to the US. But I did not have a lot of education about Gandhiji. I don't remember much from my school days. I went to a Catholic convent, and I remember learning about Mughal history and all the rest of it, but I really don't remember any explicit treatment of Gandhi. So Gandhi was always there in the background. When you go into a place and they have signs and Gandhi quotes, and some of which you don't even know if Gandhi actually said. You can just put his name on, like Einstein and some others. Many things are attributed to him that may not be. So I would say that I didn't have a direct influence in that sense. However, by my upbringing and by my nature, I was primarily brought up by my mother because my father was away for the first 7 years of my life. And so she was the only real influence. Now, I was part of a joint family and we came from a very feudal background. My family are Rajput Thakurs. So my grandfather was the landlord, Jagirdar of the village, and dozens of servants and a big house and a tremendous amount of abuse, and in many ways the opposite of what Gandhiji would have espoused. A lot of violence, not much love, people lying and cheating and doing whatever they need to do, that kind of atmosphere. So I grew up in that sense, a very amoral atmosphere. But my mother, on the other hand, embodied love, embodied complete peacefulness of nature and
Despite that.
yeah, I mean that was her nature. Right? So, and she was my single parent in many ways. So I was influenced a great deal by her, and probably by birth I was more like her than I was like my father. So I would say that I had some of these aspects
Tell me about your mom.
innate. Well, so my mom's name was Usha. She was the oldest daughter of another Thakur Jaswant Singh. This was in the Scindia kingdom. They had Jagir within that, right? And worshipped her father. And her father was more of a gentle patriarch, loving patriarch. Unlike my father's father, who was like a harsh, tough patriarch. She worshipped her father, but she lost her mother when she was about 5 years old, 5 or 6 years old, to tuberculosis. In those days, TB was a huge killer, as many other diseases were. And so yeah, she was a gentle, sweet little girl, and her mother was dying and knew it, and she decided that she was going to destroy all of the pictures that existed of her. Because she didn't want these girls to grow up remembering their mother. Crying. Yeah, she said, I don't want you to be crying over me your whole life. So all the pictures, she literally took a bucket and burned them all. Or she cut herself out of pictures, so there's no surviving picture of my grandmother. And so my mother grew up with that, and then of course there was a stepmother. My grandfather married again, and my mother eventually was sent away to a boarding school, Vanastali, I think. And after she came back, there were 5 other siblings that were born later on, and then she got married. She was only educated till the 8th grade. Very simple, very sweet, very innocent soul. Never once raised her voice to me in 62 years.
Really?
Not even once.
You never got whacked and all that?
Oh no, forget about whacking. I don't think she ever even reprimanded me.
Really?
She was just, I don't think that's common at all. I don't even think it's necessarily healthy. But she was that end of the spectrum, pure unconditional love. But she was not in her personal power. Right? She did not stand up for herself. She didn't speak back to my father or my grandfather or anybody. She would just absorb it all. My father, on the other hand, was the opposite. He had tremendous personal power and charisma and brilliance, PhD educated, scientist, but he did not come from love. So when I wanted to marry somebody he didn't approve of, he cut me off for 5 years. He said, "You're dead to me, and I have no way. I curse your marriage," and all of that. So it's like, as long as you do what he wants, it's okay. Otherwise, you don't matter at all. And so it's interesting to me. And I think this comes back to Gandhi. He said, how can you embody a great personal power, which comes from knowing who you are and having a strong set of clear purpose and core values and a moral compass, and be rooted in love, right? Because I had parents who were one or the other, rooted in love but no power, lots of power but no love. And the combination of those two things, I think, is really for me now the North Star. How can I embody that? How can I cultivate that within myself? And the more I learn about Gandhiji, the more that becomes apparent. Here's somebody who was not born with a great deal of charisma or even courage or strong personality. He was a small, person, very timid, afraid of the dark and afraid of everything. And ultimately, he managed to work on himself, and build this inner core of strength that became impenetrable. And over time, he became fearless, and nobody or nothing could intimidate him. And that all came from within.
The last part you're describing sounds like you're describing your mom, but with power.
Exactly, right? So that is the key thing, right? Power without love, is tyranny, and love without power is ineffective. And so we need power with love. And that's what Gandhiji showed up. You don't have to be appointed to anything, elected to anything, born into anything. You can be born with virtually zero power in many ways, and achieve world-changing power by working on yourself, on your own being, from the inside out. And that was his self-purification, the discipline with which he developed himself, the frameworks that he used, drawing from multiple spiritual traditions, etc. Just give us a blueprint and a roadmap for how we can actually cultivate our own personal power. The last 6 months in these conversations with you and Manisha and the others in the team, that when this idea came up, and
when we discussed this idea some time back, you were already familiar.
About a year ago, yeah.
You were familiar with that.
No, of course I'm familiar with Gandhi, but I had not read his autobiography. I knew about it. I knew anecdotes here and there, right?
You still admired him.
Oh, of course. Yeah, to me, he stood for everything that I value and hold precious. And when I admire people like Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela, I'm really admiring Gandhi. And I hold these, when I talk about the leaders who have changed the world for the better, and I've done that for years, right? They're the ones who combine power and love. So it was Lincoln, it was Gandhi, it was Mandela, it was King, and leaders of that kind. The leaders who only embodied power, like Stalin, Mussolini, and Mao, and all of them, they almost destroyed human civilization. Hitler, of course. Right? So I've always spoken of him in those terms, but I would say I didn't have any depth of understanding. So that is only recent, and I'm still really skimming the surface, but reading his autobiography finally, and then reading books about him by Louis Fisher, by Rajendra Sisodia, by his own grandson also. So I think I'm really getting that feel. And then, of course, the experience that we've had going to the ashram, and experiencing some of the settings and surroundings, and getting into the sort of texture of his life through that experience, and going deeper into some of the things that he did and how he did them, and the purity of his means, as in addition to the ends. He wanted noble ends, but he wasn't willing to achieve those noble ends by ignoble means, because he recognized that the long-term consequences of that would be harmful. Right? So I think those are all lessons that I'm learning about Gandhiji. And for me also, there's a convergence, because as I've been on my own healing journey in the last 5 years, it started in 2018 when I turned 60, and I was writing a book called The Healing Organization. And 4 women all gave me the same directive in a way. They said, you're writing a book about healing, but what about your own healing? You need to work on your own healing. And initially I brushed them off. I said, I don't have time for that. I have to work. I have a book deadline. I need to get this book done. I said, no, you need to make time for that. It's important. So I delayed that book by 5 months, and I had all these healing experiences. And unwittingly, it was nudging me towards Gandhiji, because one of the core messages I got when I was in the Amazon rainforest, going through a healing ceremony with a shaman, and I received all these visions. I had gone there to learn about healing, and the message I received was that here's what the world needs in order to heal. And the words were love, innocence, simplicity, and truth. And And now that I learned about Gandhiji, he's rooted in love. Non-violence is really innocence. It is saying, I will not knowingly cause harm to another living being. Right? That's living with ahimsa or non-violence. He lived with incredible simplicity. What are the bare essentials that we need? And he had this incredible commitment to the truth. So I feel like I've been given this message from multiple directions.
At the same time, they all
Yeah, and I think when there's convergence from different directions, then there's something fundamental there. There's a fundamental truth that is being revealed when that happens.